Good morning, kids. Our subject is English. Are you ready to our lesson for today? If you are ready, you need to listen carefully. Our topic is all about the adjectives. What do we mean by adjectives? Adjectives are words that are used to help describe or give description to people, places, and things, or we call it describing words. Let's have the example you can find rare and second-hand books in the Knowledge Bookstore. So what is the adjectives in the sentence? Rare and second-hand. The adjectives rare and second-hand refer to the adjectives that tell what kind. How about number 2? You can buy 3 books in 100 pesos. So in this sentence, what is the adjective? 3. So the adjectives 3 refer to the adjectives that tell how many. So remember, we have the 2, the what kind and how many. Adjective shows the quality or the kind of a person, place, or thing. These adjectives can show the size and shape or texture of the noun. As I said earlier, the adjectives rare and second-hand tell what kind. And let's have these examples. Colin said is wearing a brown hat. What is the adjectives in the sentence, or what kind of a hat? Brown. How about number 2? The fluffy toy is for sale. What is the adjectives in the sentence? Or what kind of a toy? Fluffy. How about the number 3? The leather bag is expensive. What is the adjective in the sentence, or what kind of a bag? Leather. So in the first sentence that we have earlier, the adjective 3 tells how many, or this adjective shows the number of the noun being described. So here are some examples. She has 3 cupcakes. What is the adjectives of this sentence, or how many cupcakes? 3. For number 2, buy 2 tickets for 8 o'clock show. So how many tickets? 2. And it is an adjective in the sentence. How about the number 3? There are 7 colors in the rainbow. So what is the adjective in the sentence? Or how many colors in the rainbow? We have 7. And now let's have the degrees of comparison. So what are the degrees of comparison? As we all know, adjectives are words that describe, and we also use adjectives to compare 2 or more nouns or a pronoun. There are 3 degrees of comparison. These are positive, comparative, and superlative. Positive adjectives can stand alone. They do not compare their nouns or pronouns they describe. So in this sentence, Dr. Mapantay is a young doctor. So Dr. Mapantay, we cannot compare Dr. Mapantay to other doctors. And this is an example of positive adjective. How about comparative adjectives? Describe or compare two nouns. So remember that comparative adjectives describe or compare two nouns. Dr. Cruz is younger than Dr. Mampantay. So we compare Dr. Cruz and Dr. Mampantay. Next, superlative adjectives. What do we mean by superlative adjectives? Describe three or more items to express the highest degree or the most extreme. And use the superlative degree when you say the expressions of all, among, everyone, and other similar phrases. Take a look at this example. Dr. Enriquez is the youngest among the three, and it is an example of superlative adjectives. Why? Because we describe Dr. Enriquez as the youngest among the three. There are rules when you form the comparative and superlative forms of adjectives. For rule number 1, for adjectives with only one syllable, add er for the comparative forms and est for the superlative form. If the adjective ends in e, just add r or st. Take a look at the chart. We have the positive, comparative, and superlative. So in the positive form, we have the nice, old, and fast. Okay, take a look at this. In a comparative form, we have the nicer because we only add r because it ends with letter e. And nicest, or we only add st because it ends with letter E. How about the old? We add older in a comparative form, and in superlative form we have oldest, or we add est, and in a comparative form of fast is faster, and in superlative form of fast is fast. So always remember that for adjectives with only one syllable, we add er for the comparative forms and est for the superlative form. Rule number 2, for adjectives that end with a single consonant, double the consonant before you add er for comparative form and est for superlative form. Take a look at these examples. We have the positive, comparative, and superlative. So in the positive form, we have fat. So we need to double the consonant before we add er for comparative form and fatter. And how about in the superlative form? We double the consonant before we add est for superlative form. And in big, we have the comparative bigger. We double the consonant and we add er. And for superlative form, we double the consonant and add est. And last one, hot. So we double the consonant t before we add er for comparative form. And then for superlative form, we have hottest. Meaning we add est and double the consonant t before we add est. Rule number 3, for adjectives that end in y. So we need to change the y into I before we add er for comparative or est for superlative form. So let's have this, the positive, comparative, and superlative form. So in the positive form, we have the pretty. So the adjectives end in y and we change the y into I. And we add er for comparative. So we got prettier. And in superlative form, we change y into I. And then we add est for superlative form. We got prettiest. How about the number 2? Easy. So in the adjectives ends in y, we change the y into I and we add er for comparative. So we have the easier, And in superlative form, we have the easiest, or we only add est and change y into I. How about the number 3? So we have the angry. So the adjectives end in y. What are we gonna do? So we need to change y into I before we add er. So we have the angry year. And in superlative form, we have the angriest, or we only change y into I, and we add est for superlative form. Rule number 4. For long adjectives, do not add er or est. To form the comparative and superlative forms, you will add more to make the comparative form and most to make the superlative form. So remember, for long adjectives, we only add more to make the comparative form and most to make the superlative form. Let's have this. The passive, comparative, and superlative. In a passive, we have beautiful. So in comparative, we add more beautiful. In superlative, we have most beautiful. And in a passive, important. We only add more important. And in superlative, we have the most important. And lastly, comfortable. So we only add more comfortable, and in superlative form, most comfortable. So always remember, for long adjectives, we do not add er or est. We only add more to make the comparative form and most to make the superlative form. Rule number 5. For irregular adjectives change the spelling in the comparative and superlative form. So we have positive form, good, bad, and little. So we need to change the spelling in the comparative and superlative forms because these are the irregular adjectives. So good, better, best, bad, worse, worst, little, less, least. And this is an example of irregular adjectives. So we only change the spelling in the comparative and superlative form. It is important to know the degrees of comparison of adjectives. Why? Because we can use this to properly describe and talk about the nouns. If you want to talk about different kinds of cake, you can use what you just learned here to compare them. Okay, let's have this one. Red velvet cake is delicious. So delicious is an adjective. And mother says black forest cake is more delicious than red velvet. So we use more delicious to compare to. And then I think chocolate mouse is the most delicious of all. So we use most delicious because we describe all chocolate mouse. And that is the end of our lesson for today. Thank you for listening, kids. Have a great day, everyone. God bless.